Hello, everybody. Yet another interesting topic, empathy and listening. I have deliberately incorporated these two topics because there's a lot of connections, similarities, or links with both skills. We'll see. In this brief lecture, I will discuss what is empathy, empathetic competencies, and listening, and then finally explain what are the levels of listening. What is empathy? And think of your experiences on with regard to empathy. Basically, there are four components to empathy. First of all, you need to think and understand. That is the cognitive component. And then you need to feel and get attuned to that. So that's the affective component of the empathy. And then the third component is you need to do action. So that's a psychomotor component of the empathy. And then it's important for you to communicate what you feel, what you thought, what you are going to do. Unless you do that, nobody else will realize that you are empathetic, and that's not beneficial. So communication is an important component of it. Empathy and sympathy are a spectrum of feelings and emotions. Now, nobody will like being subjected to being pity, subjected to somebody else's sympathy. So that's not good. And it's vital that we promote more engaged sort of emotions where you are attuned with the patient's emotions. That is what empathy is. But then the compassion is considered even as an even higher level of feelings, emotions, engagement, and more intellectual interaction with another person. Comparison between empathy and sympathy is a good idea to understand what empathy is. Empathy is a non-spontaneous, intellectually driven, advanced, effortful appraisal and an understanding and altruistic cognitive behavior. Whereas sympathy is a spontaneously arising. It's more emotional and primitive, and it is effortless. It is a form of arousal rather than appraisal. It's a feeling more than understanding. It has a egoistic nature rather than altruistic nature, and therefore it becomes an affective behavior. Empathy does not create attachments, whereas sympathy creates attachments. That is because of the way you develop those two feelings. Empathy is a learned behavior, and it's more involved in the neocortex, which is a developed part of the brain, and it is parasympathetic in its actions, and it is inhibitory, and it is energy saving, and it brings about professional satisfaction, and burnout is less likely. Whereas sympathy creates attachments, it's an innate and genetically driven behavior. It involves limbic system, which is a primitive part of the brain, and it is sympathetic, it's excitatory, therefore more energy consuming, leading to vicarious trauma, and the burnout is likely. Now it's very important for us to understand why this attachment and non-attachment in this empathy and sympathy. Now somebody who is working with empathy will not expect a return from what he is doing. So that is a very important thing to understand. Whereas somebody who is working with sympathy probably expects something in return. So that is why they lead to more vicarious trauma. Now, when you are thinking of empathy, it's a competency. It's a complex thing. It's not just one thing. As much as we have 4 components that I have described earlier, and it's essential for us to recognize different levels of different components of empathy. Say, for example, empathetic literacy is the ability to recognize predicaments of others. Now here you can see this sister has recognized her brother is in pain. So I am sure this picture drawn by Dr. Tanuja is vividly showing you that empathetic literacy, she has recognized the issue. Empathetic perspective is the ability to feel and get attuned. You get emotionally attuned with the other party, the other person with you. Having recognized and expressing what you feel is empathetic communication. Now that ability to express your own emotion is a separate skill. Not everybody can do it effectively. So you need to develop that skill. And it is very important for you to take action and do it. So we call it empathetic action, doing it. Spot when children do it and appreciate it. That's how you inculcate empathy among children. Your empathy and that emotional drive might lead you to do things out of control. Therefore, empathetic self-control is another important skill. And that's why this girl is getting advice from her grandmother as to what to do in her empathetic, motivated situation. Many conditions where you are motivated to do something with empathy need collaboration. You can't do it alone. So therefore, asking for help and communicating with others is important, and that is called empathetic collaboration. Empathetic moral identity. It is very important for us to recognize that children, after having done something worth, something good to the society, they will feel proud about themselves. That is moral identity. Empathetic courage is important because activities done with empathy may have any obstacles, so they should be determined to overcome those obstacles. Empathetic imagination or dream is yet another important attributes that our students should inculcate, and their dreams are very valid and very good, and that will drive their future endeavors as well. When they have developed this full scope of empathetic competencies, they will become empathetic change makers. They will plan that they want to change the society and for a better future. So that's the type of children that we should try to develop for the society. Listening is one of the most important skill in communication. You cannot be a good communicator unless you are a good listener. So listening is so important. You can see at the bottom here, the ignoring is mentioned. Ignoring is not listening at all. That's not a good behavior. And some do pretend listening. That too is not good. And then selective listening is where the listener is listening to the component that he is interested in. And you are not ready to listen to the entire story of the person who is relating the story. So that's not good at all. And that is what the doctors had been doing in the past, where they listen and they try to pick the important information that is helpful for their diagnosis. That's not good. We should be attentive listeners, where we get attuned with the patient's emotions and listen attentively to the entire story. And that is not good enough. You need to reflect back. You need to express your emotions, tell the things that you understood, summarize in between, express your feelings and emotions. That is how you become a reflective listener. But then finally, the best thing to do is for you to be empathetic towards your patient, especially in doctor-patient communication. It's a patient who is talking to you about their predicaments, issues and problems that they have. So therefore, it is essential for you to get empathetic and then express that empathy in the communication. Because of the importance of this important topic, I have developed this Sinhala version of it. සිංහලෙන් එක විස්තර කරන්න මම උත්සාහ කරන්නේ. කොතෙක් ගැඹුරෙන් සවන් දෙනවාද කියන එකේදී මම නිකම් සඳහන් කළා මේ තියෙන මෙතන කනට, මනසට, හදවතට දැනීම, හැඳිනීම හා හැඟීම සඳහා කියලා. මට හිතෙන්නේ තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් අපි මම අදහස් කරන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එක. ඇහුම්කන් දෙන්නේ කනට විතරක් නෙමෙයි මනසට හා හදවතට දැනෙන පමණින් ඇහුම්කන් දිය යුතුයි කියන එක. නොසලකා හැරීම සවන් දෙන බව හැඟවෙන එක හොඳ නැති කරුණු වශයෙන් අපි සඳහන් කරා ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන්. අවශ්‍ය දෙයට පමණක් සවන් දීම සුදුසු නොවේ. අපි අවධානයෙන් යුතුව සවන් දිය යුතු අතරම ප්‍රතිචාර දක්වමින් සවන් දෙන එක වැදගත්. ඊට අමතරව අපි සහකම්පනයෙන් යුතුව සවන් දෙන්නට පුළුවන් නම් එය තමයි අපේ හොඳම දක්ෂතාවය. ඒ නිසා කිසිම අවස්ථාවක අපි අපේ සගයා අපි සමග සිටින අනික් අය කතා කරන දේවල් නොසලකා හැරීම හෝ සවන් දෙන බව හැඟවමින් එසේ සවන් නොදීම හෝ අපට අවශ්‍ය දේ පමණක් සවන් දීම සුදුසු නොවන බව අපි මතක තබා ගත යුතුයි. Coming to the end of this short lecture about empathy and listening, I hope there were very useful information. And at the end of this lecture, there is another set of MCQs for you to respond before you move on to the next lecture. Thank you.